There's
Did
a
you see
lot of
that octopus?
documentaries on it.
No, no,
Oh,
no, the
the
octopus
one on
teacher one.
the one on Netflix.
Oh yeah, on Netflix.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah. I thought that was
that was
actually really
banger.
nicely shot. I thought it was good.
And
Yeah.
was it a love story at the end?
I hope so.
It was, surely. I mean,
Was it
I watched the first 5 minutes of it, and then it was like, I'll come back to it. I think there's a new Star Trek or something.
We're
So,
Gentlemen,
live.
I think we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome and season's greetings. I'd like to present these two beautiful gentlemen to you. I looked at the fact that for me to fly directly to New York, Qantas will fly you directly to New York, 17 hours, or directly to London, 19 hours. Now, gentlemen, for those that are new here, just tell the world a little bit about yourselves. Go, Seth.
Hi, my name's Seth Miranda. I'm a pro photographer here in New York. I shoot a lot of special effects, makeup, zombies, aliens, creatures, and I've shot everything on the planet. You can go check out any video on Adorama TV or my own channel. I'm going to think it's like over here. My social is Last X Witness. Have fun stalking me.
That was a great intro. I don't really know how I can follow that. I'm Rishi. I'm a trainer, a Nikon school trainer, and I like to talk about cameras. And so I found two people who also like to talk about cameras, and we share very similar beliefs. So hopefully we can have some good stuff to talk about today. I'm also from the UK, and I recognize that there's a lot of people also still watching from the UK, and I applaud you because it's obviously 1 minute past midnight. So just let everybody know.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here, gents. We've also got people in like Germany, and I believe it's like 1 a.m. in Germany. I've noticed
Yes.
people in India where it's like 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. So honestly, welcome world as we come towards the end of this year and into a new year. And I suppose we're all excited to see that Nikon kept their promise and Z9s are starting to roll around the world. That is super exciting. And Seth, you and I, we've had ours for about a week. How you feeling about it? Yeah, let's here they are. Boom.
Yeah, I'm feeling. I'm very happy with it, and so far, it's basically doing everything that it's been promising. So I'm very happy with that. I shot the prototype, and I'll say that this does feel a little tighter on the focus, to be honest with you, Richie. I don't know if that was a thing that got finished up, but what I'm really excited about is I was able to look at the raw files finally. So I wasn't able to do that till I got a production model, and it worked day one with Capture One. I tethered live on my Twitch channel, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know if the last time I had a camera work day one as a tether on Capture One. So I was very excited about that. And I'm also very excited that I tested out all my pro photo gear and everything synced at 250, not 200th. So I don't know what the hell's up with that spec. I'm guessing that's a minimum speed for some brand of manufacturers. So far, I'm very happy. And they actually, look, they monogrammed my lens for me. They told me this lens is for you.
Seth,
so I'm very happy. Very happy.
It was specifically made for your requirements. That was what I was told.
There's a few things. There's a couple things I want to see changed in firmware. We've been discussing it. We'll get to that later, I'm sure. But for the most part, I can't think of anything that was said about this camera that it hasn't delivered on for me yet, although I will say I haven't taken it into hardcore work yet. I do plan to record my EVF on my first special effects job later this month. So maybe I'll put out a video on my channel. So you guys, because one of the big things I have a problem with is eye autofocus on special effects makeup doesn't work a lot. If it's a blue colored makeup, most of the time it won't work. If it's obscured eyes, abstracted features, it won't work. And that's every brand. That's not Nikon, that's every brand. So I'm really curious to see what happens here, and we'll find out together.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And look, I've only had it for a week. Obviously, it's a kind of busy time of year personally, and I've taken the camera out 2 or 3 times now. And I'm just loving the handling. I mean, the D4 was the last full frame, full bodied camera that I used because I went the high resolution route. So just to be having a camera that you can, hold like this, that it's new and it's exciting. And look, as I talked about, my main interest in this camera was actually 8K, which I know a lot of people don't get, but I'm really enjoying the 8K, and I'm going to have a movie coming out in the next maybe 48 hours, which is going to be 8K to YouTube. I'll also have, as you suggested, Seth, a Dropbox download, which will be big. But I've started editing now, and I'm absolutely blown away by what I'm seeing. So, and I don't know if you guys just picked up, but about 8 hours ago, Cine D, their YouTube channel, just dropped their reviews, giving the Z9 their mirrorless cinema camera of the year. So they're a big fan of it as well. So, you know, it's really exciting stuff. And Richie, you're what, 5 months into? I don't know. I can't remember. I think it was 3 months when we last talked about it. So
well, it was. I think I saw my first unit, which was like June last year.
Yep.
This year. I almost said last year. It wasn't last year.
No.
Just to be clear.
Yes.
So yeah, obviously things have changed a lot, and like Seth mentioned earlier, even like the production units just feel a little bit tighter. They just feel a little bit nicer in getting everything ready. So hopefully the people that have had their cameras arrive, and obviously you guys have you've got the kind of final experience, the best experience we can get so far. Obviously a lot of that is going to improve with firmware updates even to come as well. So I think there's definitely some exciting stuff to come with the firmware updates coming down the road as well. So
January 5th, right? January 5th is the first update. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, but that would just be that's not part of like the promised like big updates, if that makes sense. That would just be a smaller, relatively, obviously there's going to be big updates and then small updates like there is for every camera. So there's going to be stuff that's going to be fixed or finalized, and then things that, little problems that might still exist can be finalized in small firmware. And then there'll be big firmware updates like the ones that Nikon have promised around the launch of the Z9 as well. So lots of stuff with firmware, which is always exciting.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't realize watching the Cine D video that this class of camera, that the Z9 was the first to feature internal ProRes. I didn't realize that, and that is huge.
Okay.
Like I was shooting. Yeah, you go, Seth. But it's amazing. You go.
It's no. I didn't mean to step on you, but like I gotta, just so you guys know, I'm a content producer for Adorama TV, and we shoot our videos with everything that's around us. Fuji, which my guy loves using Fuji, Lumix S1H, all that's everything, Sony's, whatever. He used the Nikon Z9. It had ProRes internal. The second he heard that, he never ever asked for Nikon ever until that moment. He even put the thing to his face and he asked if we can get one for the department before even trying the camera out. That's how much it means to some people that shoot this kind of stuff all day, every day. And that's another thing to say about the camera, is that it's $5,500 US. But that's kind of like where it stops, because you kind of don't need to get an external recorder because it does everything internal. So you save like $1,000 there. And come on, man. Like, are you kidding me? Everything's internal. It's just nuts. The 8K 60 12-bit's going to blow minds.
Yeah, well, it's 12-bit ProRes RAW coming later. That's what Cine D said. Is that correct? ProRes RAW?
There'll be some ProRes, and then ProRes RAW, and then there'll also be Nikon RAW. So there's two different RAW formats, obviously.
So it's, sorry, you go.
That's right. I was just going to say, obviously, the Nikon RAW video format is similar to the Nikon RAW stills formats that were obviously the high efficiency RAW formats. So, yeah. One thing that not everybody might have seen is that in my battery life test video, I'd obviously did 4K ProRes internal, and 2 hours and 5 minutes of 4K ProRes took up 1.75 terabytes worth of data.
Yeah,
so
it's huge.
I can understand why cameras have done it externally up until now, because you need such big memory cards to record anything meaningful. But obviously, if you've got large enough cards, and CF Express is now allowing us to do that, then you can get some, good recording times out of this incredibly high quality video.
Yeah, well, exactly. And putting that into a more bite-sized chunk, 30 seconds is 4 gig. Like I did some 30-second clips, right, and they're 4 gigs. So it's absolutely beautiful and amazing. So to be able to shoot that, and just to clarify, that's 8K. Is it 8K ProRes RAW?
So right now, ProRes internal is 4K only.
Yeah.
And then if you want to shoot 8K, you can still do that 10-bit right now, but obviously things will change in terms of resolutions and formats with firmware updates.
It's just crazy. It's an amazing format. You go, Seth.
Someone in the chat saying, I want hardware, not firmware. But I think you guys don't realize that what you are buying, no matter what the brand is, the hardware, and you're trusting the brand on your loyalty, to come through with optimizing the hardware through firmware. So we've seen that before. I mean, Fuji had a firmware update that took one of their cameras from 1080 to 4K video. I mean, that's a free update that totally juiced up that camera. The Nikon Z6 II and 7 II got 4K 60 updates. I mean, this is really what you're doing, is looking at the pure power, so that you're not constantly buying the next hardware. You're just getting more out of what you're choosing to invest into as a system, no matter what the brand. It's just a testament of, does that brand support you with firmware, and can their cameras perform based on what they created in the hardware?
And I get it, right? Like, people want their camera to be as good as it should be when it comes out of the box. So, you know, I'm all for making sure that firmware is as good as it can be when a product launches. But there are, just whatever industry you look at, there are things that can always be improved, and firmware is the easiest way to do that over time, rather than releasing a new camera body 6 months later, right? So, you know, if you look at like gaming, you look at mobile phones, you look at software now, there's just updates all the time. So,
and it's normal. It's complete. We accept it.
Normal, right? Like, if you look at what Apple do, obviously they release a new phone every year, right? We're not all of a sudden going to release a new Z9 every year. That's not going to happen at all. But they still do big firmware updates. They do big updates that add new features, even for older phones. So, you know, we're going to be in a situation where Z6 and Z7, the first generation of Z6 and Z7, obviously got a big update not too long ago for their autofocus. It improved their eye autofocus. So if we're in a situation where they were shipped, let's say with firmware version 3, we wouldn't have then ever got that firmware update, because they would have just stuck with the original software and hardware that they had. So I think there are advantages to it. And it just means that you can keep that same product or that same camera for a longer period of time, really.
And I love the fact that I love the fact that the Z9 is much more of a solid state device than we've ever seen before. And that's, of course, removing the shutter. So the more physical moving things you remove, the more scope you have to do things in firmware. So, you know, it is, as I said in a previous video, it's a brave new world. It's an exciting new world. It's a big risk, you know, changing what photography has been for, I don't know, what is it, 150, 175 years, that there was a physical thing that had to cover the image collection plane. So yeah, I'm very excited by it.
Let's just, because they're all muttering this, let's just address this elephant in the room, and Richie, you're probably the only one that can answer this. The rumor that things aren't delivering until October of next year, 2022. What is there truth to that? What's the deal with the delivery?
I think if anyone's learned anything over the past couple of years, it's that you can't get any really good information on delivery dates from any retailers, whether it's on cameras, PlayStations, whatever it is, right? So
that's true.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, a camera will ship when it ships. They're not going to be in a situation where they're not going to ship any until October. There'll be multiple shipments between then. So the numbers, the official numbers, are that Nikon can manufacture 3,500 units every month. That's it.
There you have it. That's a lot more than zero between now. I mean, that means 35,000 cameras between now and September, almost. That's a lot of cameras. So good stuff. Good stuff. What else have we got there in the questions? And yes, if you have a question, as Seth said last time, put a Q at the front.
Oh,
and then we'll think you're QAnon. Is that what you said? Something along those lines.
Yeah, put a capital Q before your question so we can easily spot them. And if you're going to troll, I'm just going to let you know that I'm going to tell Matt to kick you out. I'm like so over the trolling stuff, all right? I did want to talk about how this is the only camera I own, and I have a whole desk full of them right here. You can have like GFX, the Alpha one, all this stuff that has matching CF Express B cards. And that means that I only have to buy one format. And I'm super psyched to say that Angelbird they're available for pre-order right now, or actually it says they're in stock. Oh, they're in stock. The 512 gig SE and the 160 gig, what is it, SX for $180. $180 for these cards. That's cheap as hell for this stuff.
Sorry, what size are they, Seth?
They're 512 and 160, and the 160 actually maintains a speed of 1,480 megabytes a second. And the 512 maintains a speed of 800 megabytes a second sustained. That's great.
So like the 512 is designed for video, and the 160 is just designed for stills photography, hence the smaller capacity. But you're absolutely right. Like the 160 is the best priced, fastest card I can find, if that makes sense.
And it's 180.
Hi, Adorama.
And it's 180 US. Is that what you said, Seth?
What?
It's 180 US.
180 bucks. Yeah,
for the 160.
I put the links in the chat. Yeah,
cool.
No, both are the same price.
Oh, they're just speed differences.
Yeah. So you pay the same price, you get less capacity but faster speed, or you go for the higher capacity, but then your obviously speed is a bit slower. But
love it. Geez, that is cheap. That's crazy cheap.
Yeah.
We
got a question.
They designed them for heat. Oh man, we're all on a delay, so it's weird.
Yeah, sorry.
Just to keep in mind,
Australia.
Those cards were basically tested on a Z9. Angelbird had their own Z9 to test those cards on. So just so people know.
Adorama's asking, how hard do we need to troll? Well, that's a good question. How hard are you?
Adorama, I know all your filthy secrets, Adorama, and I will.
You'll find you.
Craig Milne is asking, when do we think the high efficiency RAW Star codecs will be manageable by other software? Any thoughts around that? Do we know?
I don't have any info on that, unfortunately.
Yep.
If we go off previous releases of cameras where they didn't have any support at launch, we're then still looking at maybe 1-2 months after that. So because support is already here, maybe it's a shorter time, but I just don't know, unfortunately.
Well, I have to say I was super stoked that the new Capture One was ready to go with the standard RAW files. So from my personal perspective, I was over the moon that I was able to just use RAWs straight away. So that is way better than most camera launches. Let's be honest about it. The fact that we can do RAW, and is Adobe processing the RAW files as well, the standard lossless?
Yeah.
So they've both done it out of the box. That's unusual.
It became quite common that you had to wait a couple of months, and then you had to try and really rework things. Like I remember there was a time where I had a Z7 and I had to tell Lightroom that it was a D850 file.
Oh, nice one.
So there's things I always used to do to try and get Lightroom to read the files from a Z7, for example. But obviously, I didn't have to do that in this instance. Yeah,
well, I did the same with the ZFC, trying to make it a Z50, and the Z6 II, trying to make it a Z6, and but we didn't have to do it this time, so that's so awesome. But I didn't know the Z7 to D850 thing. Yeah, so I always at the start of a new camera have a folder for a month or two where I've had to either use the Nikon software or just shoot with JPEGs or, and then those files I always lose because they're not in my normal workflow because it's just, anyway, that's the way it is. What else is going on in the comments there?
I did see someone asked about, where is it gone? NX Mobile Air will be available in the UK. That's a really good question. I'm currently trying to find the answer to that question myself because everyone keeps saying that it's available. I can't get it. So unfortunately, I can't tell you when that will be available, but I don't know what's causing that to not be available. But when it is available, it'll be obviously free to download. So, but I've got no date on it.
Shane Baker, the high efficiency RAW that's what we were talking about. That doesn't work in Capture One yet, but we're hoping it's the normal sort of cycle, a month or 3. But the full size RAWs, they work perfectly, which is so exciting.
I don't care if I'm sorry, that sounds so juvenile of me, but I tether, so I'm using the fullest of the camera that I can. I understand if you want to take your card, dump it, and make a catalog, but for the most part, you're using Capture One as a tethering software. So for me, I'm I just cared that I got RAW. I remember when the Z6 II came out, and I couldn't read the RAW file in Capture One, and I had a 7-hour demo to do for Imaging USA, and they just released the Capture One update 45 minutes before I went live, and I was thankful, because otherwise I'm shooting JPEG to show a demo, Oh man. So the The other thing I want to talk about was the low light autofocus, because I've been having a lot of fun with it. And in the previous Z cameras, the exposure and the metering was like one processing. So if the camera didn't get an exposure happening inside the camera, it couldn't focus. But I'm not finding that on the Z9.
No, so that's part of the dual stream technology thing. And I'm sure there's a better way of explaining that. So the idea is that obviously, like we talked about, exposure affects autofocus in all of the mirrorless cameras. I might be wrong there, but I know that it affects it in Z7, Z6, and so on. And you can basically stop that from happening by turning off apply settings to live view. That just, you don't actually have the setting of apply settings to live view in a Z9 because the exposure doesn't affect autofocus. That's the idea. The picture is taken at your exposure settings and the autofocus is always just there at a constant setting. And that's where that kind of dual stream technology becomes really useful. It also then comes back to how you want to see through your viewfinder. So you don't have to see the white balance, the brightness, the exposure. You can have it customized and the picture still being taken at your exposure and the autofocus and your viewfinder is doing something completely different. So yeah, you could literally have a completely underexposed shot. And if you did that on a Z7, it wouldn't focus on anything because there's nothing in front of it as far as the camera is concerned. Whereas on a Z9, you can have whatever exposure you want. And the focus, as far as it's concerned, is just the real world, if that makes sense.
It's sick.
So Joseph's workshop is asking, Richie, have you pulled stills from 8K? Is there any penalty other than resolution?
No, other than I think they're JPEGs. I've not tested that extensively.
So I've tried to in post just work out how to like export a frame. Is there?
You can do it in camera, but you can't. So the one big thing is that obviously with Z7 II and Z6 II is you could shoot whilst in video mode.
Yes.
You could shoot stills whilst in video mode. You can't do that on a Z9. So you have to record the video. And then when you play back the video in camera, you can take a frame at that point.
Okay. And that's just it. That's in the play menu.
Yeah. So literally you're just playing back the video on the back of your camera. You then either press your I button or you go into the menu and you can then basically say, right, I want that frame. And you can scroll through each frame as well if you wanted to. And then you choose which one you want to cut. It cuts it out, saves it as a file.
That is brilliant. That is brilliant. Because I was working out how to do that in post. And I'm sure, exporting from Final Cut Pro, can I just grab a frame? And maybe that's something that will come now that we've kind of got such high resolution in video. Because I would like to be able to do that. You're watching a video and go, oh, that's a great frame. And especially once we get to RAW, like once we get to the Nikon RAW, you're essentially got Nikon 12-bit RAW files. Frame grabbing is going to be a thing. I feel it from my perspective anyway.
I think it was, when 8K became a new thing, it was one of those things that often people talked about is that if you could just record 8K at 33 megapixels at 30 frames a second, why would you take a still, if that makes sense? So yeah, I think there's just going to be that continual blend of video and stills because they benefit from each other. It's obviously, I still see a lot of photographers who think that they don't want to have any video in their cameras or they're not going to benefit from any video. But I do think that stills and video do benefit from each other.
That's a little misguided. I get a lot of people saying like, oh, well, just shoot video and pull stills. And the problem is you're always at the mercy of a shutter speed when you're shooting video. So if you're shooting anything moving and it is a 60th of a second, good luck. And that's kind of why I think the 120 frames per second is so special in the camera, because it's like shooting video with whatever shutter speed you want.
I also think you can deliberately choose to go, look, I'm not shooting the new Scorsese film. I'm going to up my shutter a little bit, and then you can have the best of both worlds. Like, because you don't have to shoot at a 60.
And that's what I mean by I think they're benefiting from each other, because clearly being able to shoot stills at 120 frames per second has come from some video technology, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they're benefiting from each other. You can still shoot whatever you want to, if you.
Yeah, I mean, this camera is basically it is the fusion of the two. It's exactly the same process to capture an image, whether it's moving or stills.
Look, I never thought I'd see the day that Nikon wins any type of awards, even on websites for video. I never. You guys had Nikon had video before anybody, and they threw it away. They were just like, "Nah, what are we doing with this?" And they never went into it. It's so bizarre. What I think has to happen, and this is where I'm going to make the whole chat hate me. Excuse me. The Z8 should be a cinema-based video camera. It should not be a res beast. Let the Z7 III be what people that want a smaller scaled Z9 be. Let that be a stacked sensor, but let the Z8 be a very cinema-based. Give them XLR inputs, give them shutter angle, give them everything they want, like a C70 or an FX3 Nikon, and start building up that ecosystem.
And what res would you like that to be, Seth?
I think, as everybody else is saying, 11 billion megapixels. Clearly, it's just
yes.
Without. I hate people don't understand that more res, you hit a diminishing return at some point. When your noise takes away the detail in an image, you get a diminishing return, and that's what happens. I just don't see this like 80 megapixel full frame being a good thing after. I mean, I don't know. Am I crazy?
No, I totally agree with you, Seth. I think the need for ongoing resolution has only got very limited applications, and where I hear it the most is birding, and otherwise, and this is people who just want to crop in, and that's fine. But I don't think it's relevant in almost any other place. Because I want the dynamic range, and I want the ISOs and all the other things that come with your photo sites not getting too small. That's what I want. So anyway, the time will tell what. And why don't we segue over to 2022? Do we have any feelings about what we're excited to see?
Yeah,
Richie, you might just have to nod a lot.
I'm excited to see the R3 ship. I just want to see the R3 ship. That's all I want to see is the R3 in people's hands. I want people using that camera. It's awesome. I think it's a great camera, but it hasn't been shipping. So
okay, R3 shipping. I suspect there's a lot of people very excited about lenses like the 200 to 600, which we'll hopefully see in 2022. Obviously, the 100 to 400 is that's out, right? It's just sort of seems to be in some places it's easier to get than others.
There's always different stock numbers around the world, right? So the official date was the December 16th. So pretty much worldwide, regions could start shipping them out from the 16th. So it might be that some regions got a small number and only some of them have gone out, but then there'll be obviously new shipments in the new year. Just depends on what region you're in, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think you guys are going to announce.
You go. I'm excited about the 85 1.2, which hopefully again we'll see sometime in 2022. Seth, what lens were you most excited about for 2022?
I mean, I already got my most exciting lens. All I cared about was the 24 to 120. I annoyed Richie forever about this.
Surely you want an 800 PF, don't you? That'd be good for portraiture, wouldn't it? Not really. I'm joking.
I'll tell you this. I'm curious to do the video for that. I really want to see just how compact it gets down to, because I did the Olympus 800 millimeter lens. They have like a huge monster lens that I did a video for. I shot ducks for of all things for that, which was so I kind of want to see what a full frame version of that would be since it's so shrunk down. But PF lenses are prone to fringing from what I heard, so I'm kind of curious about that. But I really think 2022, I think Nikon's going to either at least announce some sort of crop body. I think you're going to see like a D500 mentioning mirrorless, like something that people have been asking for. You guys haven't done anything with the APS-C line except for a ZFC, so I think it's time to put some power into that lineup.
I mean, I was a D500 user for I think 2 years. I think I had my D500 for 2 years and I moved to a D850. So I completely appreciate the importance of still having something like a D500. Whether that will ever happen, I don't know. So, I mean, there are more and more people moving to full frame than ever before. So, and as make counts get higher, it's easier to crop. I don't know.
I was about to say, I feel I've said the Z9 is a hybrid of the D850, the D500, and the D5, and really you're getting the best of all of those three, and you're getting a whole lot more. And sure, it's more expensive, but I mean the D500 is how old is 5 years old now? So
yeah, it was released with the D5.
Yeah, so that's 16, isn't it? That's 16 that came out. So
we see a Z90 with the Z9. You'll see. You'll all
see. That's not.
I mean,
no.
There is some logic there, but there's a lot to love about full frame as well. So of course,
I mean, this is
hello.
This is medium format in the size of full frame. You know what I mean? So this is a GFX 100S with a totally flipped out screen. Am I going to get some focus going on here? And then this is the Z9 with the flipped out screen, all crazed out. But I just think it's kind of interesting that medium format's getting smaller to the size of this feels like a DSLR to me, like a D850 in my hands. It's the same speed, same, clunk factor, I'd say. And I love this camera. The GFX 100 is amazing. I just think that we're being able to create a lot of power in smaller form factors. And I could see a crop sensor Z series with a lot of power just doing so well for travel, so well for people that want to shoot crop sensor as it is, like the bird people. You hear what I'm calling them, Richie? You're bird people. You're a bunch of bird people.
I'm a bird person.
I mean, you've segued nicely there to my fantasy camera, which is the ZM, which is the medium format version, showing the. So we don't have to talk about that anymore. But that's my fantasy camera for 2024. That's when I think that's coming out. That'll be last.
If they did it.
What is the? Let me just ask you this question, man. What is the one thing that you want from medium format? Is it resolution, or is it that picture quality, or is it depth of field, or what's that one thing that is medium format?
The thing that I love that the Nikon cameras give me, the Z cameras give me, is low light, immense dynamic range, high ISO. So it's that ability, like if you see my photos of laneways and whatever I'm photographing, and I just love seeing the textures. And we've got to the point now with the Z system where you literally it feels like you're there and it feels like it's real. Like I've got a $40,000 Hasselblad, and the Z system is similar from my perspective. It's, I'm not going to say it's the same, but there's differences. But I'm not saying when I say it's not the same, I'm not necessarily saying the Nikon's worse. In some ways, in a lot of ways, it's better, to be honest with you.
It's different.
It's different.
It's different. Listen, Dan Norton, who's been on YouTube for a million years, has been through this industry front to back, went from a Hasselblad to buying a Z6. And this is a guy who bitches about everything. I share a studio with this guy. So, and I shot both cameras when he had them. The thing I think you'd agree, Matt, is there's a bit depth to the medium format systems, and there's a color tone to that you don't really get on smaller sensors. This GFX 100 is a 16-bit file. There's 14-bit across the board on full frame. And I think that's the next generation of sensors is going to be the bit depth, not resolution. So people that are like, I want 60 megapixels, I want 80 megapixels, you're not getting a better image. You'll get a better image when you get more bit depth. And that's when you'll see a difference. These people that want like 60 megapixels, never shot it, go to 400 ISO and look at how quickly you start seeing noise get introduced. It's just not, it's diminishing return too quickly and limits the camera in so many situations, in my opinion.
It's also optics. Like there's a whole lot of things that I'm struggling right now, and thanks for asking me, but I'm struggling to kind of put it into words. But there's just optics change, dynamic range changes, ISO changes.
I mean, it's like
all these little nuances.
It's the reason I asked the question, because like I always feel like there's always something in every industry that has kind of like a halo kind of term around it, or people just go, oh, I want to shoot medium format because it's medium format. Like then people who shoot APS-C, they go, oh, I want to shoot full frame because it's full frame. And there's never really like a clear distinction as to why, but I think every photographer is going to be different, right? They're going to have a preference. If they see something in medium format, or if they see something in full frame, then that's all that really matters to them, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's
but
just it's the precision of the image, I suppose, and for me, like I think the GFX series is brilliant, right? But I think the Nikon Z glass is outstanding.
Great.
And if you could mix, I don't see any reason why the focus system wouldn't be as fast as a Z6 or a Z7, but you're putting that on a small medium format. So then you have the best of both worlds. You have a very fast camera in all circumstances, but it happens to be a slightly larger sensor. Now, is it worth it going from there? And Seth, you know better than I do the difference between a Z7 and a GFX and the trade-off image-wise. But, you know, I'm a photographer and I'm always just looking for making things just a little bit more. I do it as a living, you know, it's my profession. I sell large format prints. So that's where it fits in my world.
Yeah, but I think like, so the GFX system, every time I say it's medium format, there's some nerd schmuck jerk that's like, it's not real medium format, that's 645 and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, shut up. It's bigger than your freaking your full frame sensor. So being that this is even considered like the smallest of the medium format, and I've shot Phase 1, I've shot Hasselblad, which are definitely bigger sensors. The lenses are way bigger. The system itself is way bigger. The cameras are more power hungry, the battery power, right? So that versatility you get on full frame, you start hitting a bit of a wall on medium format. This is 5 frames a second. And now people are crying that it's not doing 30 frames a second. Oh, yeah. Think about that, right? Yeah. So it gets to a point where what do you really want? And that's why I think like if Nikon did a medium format, that would just be baller to have a Z mount that goes across all the formats. Yeah. But if they did a crop sensor, the real advantage to the crop sensor is the lenses get smaller, the bodies get cheaper, the system can be performance heavy, but not heavy on people's wallets, and they can get a lot out of it. And I think that really brings people into the system. Then they take those lenses and just throw them on a full frame if they ever get one. You know, I mean, as much as you want a medium format Nikon, I would love that, Matt. It would break everybody because how many years have we heard a rumor about it? But I really, really want a Nikon rangefinder. I just want them to bring back rangefinders. Just do it. Just give me, you already did the ZFC. Give me my old Nikon rangefinders and mirrorless.
There we have it. So, very good. Let's have a look at the question. What else have we got going on in the questions, Richie? What's happening in there?
There's a couple of questions I was just going to go back to because there's obviously quite a few that are further on. There's one question about battery life. If your battery is brand new, obviously just run it through a couple of cycles and then your battery life will get a little bit better. But 1,600 shots sounds a little bit low.
Yeah.
There could be something that you've got turned on that is draining battery life, maybe either GPS or brightness of screen or brightness of viewfinder. But I've not seen the brightness of viewfinder cause too much of a problem. So I think there's probably something going on there. So just double check settings, make sure you got everything the way you want it to be set. There was another question as well. Can you quickly switch between single and release using just your right hand? The only way you could do that with just your right hand is you would have to try and assign it to either an I button or to a function button. So I'll come back to you on that and see if you can assign it to a function button. Because obviously your shutters on your shooting speeds are always on the left because the dial and the button's on the left. So I'll see if I can find that. No rumors on the 400 2.8, but I'm really excited for that lens because it's 2 lenses in one. It's a 400 2.8 and it's a 560 f4. I think I'm just scrolling down now. I think we answered the one about the Nikon Air.
Oh, I did want to say this also about medium format. This camera, as amazing it is, as good as the autofocus is for medium format, the second the light gets too low for it, you start having some issues in there. But this for me is primarily a studio camera. And Hank, I don't know what your problem is. You've been like riding this chat all night, but buy me a Leica. Tell me to buy a Leica. You buy me a Leica. All right. Mwah. Good night.
Yeah, Hank, send him one.
Jeez. It's so annoying. It's so annoying. The bottom line is there's always been this trade-off of like image quality and performance, right? We've always been riding this line. And right now I just feel like the Z9 gives me you know, because how many times, remember when there was like flagship cameras that were 16 megapixel? Remember those days? And now we're looking at 46 megapixels. Like, it's crazy.
Well, that is the interesting thing. If you think about like the D6, is it 24? I can't remember, 24 or 20. 20. So to think that the D6 and you know, the other cameras at that level, their peers from Canon and so on, and now we've doubled that resolution and doubled the speed and all those sorts of things. I mean, it's a lot of camera and it's cheaper. So it really is a great all-rounder camera. Hank's saying only 9K. That's good. You can buy that. You can buy that for Seth, Hank. Thank you. We appreciate it.
I also wanted to comment on people that were basically saying that I'm going to have a poker face for the next 3 minutes. Obviously, that was previously when we were talking about next cameras. Obviously, they've not watched any of my Z9 teaser videos. So I thought that was quite funny. But yeah, I can't obviously suggest anything.
No, we have to. Please be gentle. We're very lucky to have him here. We thank you, Richie, for being here. And
thank you guys for having me. You know, I'd probably just be asleep if I wasn't doing this. So.
Well, that's right. I just want you to know, everybody, it's after midnight. It's now 19 minutes to 1 a.m. for Richie. Well, let's talk about 2021. What was your favorite release from 2021? One of mine was the DJI Cinema 4D camera, you know, with the crazy arm. I thought that was an exciting off-the-wall original release. Just to throw something out there, you know, if you want crazy Steadicam in a form factor that here in Australia, I mean, it's about twice the price of a Z9, but wow. That was an exciting camera that I don't know if anybody's seen me on my scooter, but I want to strap that to the front of my scooter and see if I can get some cool panoramic shots going along the river. I'm still yet to crash my scooter with all that gear. So let's see how that goes. No, well, I don't want to. I've been a cyclist my whole life, so hopefully that leaves me in good stead. What about you, Seth?
So, well, someone's just asking about the Nissan Profoto collab. I can't really talk about the Nissan, but I did talk to Profoto, and Profoto actually made sure that everything that they have works and talks perfectly to the Z9 on release. They even sent out an email to all Profoto registered people that they did that. So I updated all my 7 speed lights and triggers to make sure everything synced correctly, and it does. What I would like to see is, and I know this is a pipe dream, but because now cameras have Bluetooth and now Profoto's lights have Bluetooth, I would like to see the flashes menu systems as a menu system in the camera. Wow. So I can just get to the groups and channels inside my camera and not need an app on my phone anymore. Profoto's stared at me with a straight face when I said that, and that usually means I should shut my mouth and not say anything anymore. So I don't know if that's a thing or not.
Shut your mouth and don't say anything anymore.
Yeah.
The CIA might come.
Not, but you know. Oh my God, I hope. I can only hope.
The technology is there, as you say. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen like that, and that would be amazing. I'd love to be able to control my flashes from. I've got some Profoto stuff, and I'd love to be able to use them in the camera. Imagine that, yeah, because the whole reaching out to the little you know remote unit on top or using your phone, it's just not as easy, is it?
Well, no trigger can do what the apps do. The apps for Profoto let you change everything. That's the actual menus in the light are in your phone, changing groups, changing channels on the light, not the remote, the light. And that's sick. So, and people that shoot multiple strobes know exactly what I'm talking about. And Rodney, basically like a new CLS system. And anyone who's just used the CLS system knows that the biggest problem was line of sight or bright sunny days for the flashes trying to see an optical trigger. We don't need that anymore. That's kind of, dinosaurish, and forget it. Let the lighting companies make the lights. Let the camera companies focus on making the cameras. Like, I don't need Nikon to put out strobes anymore. I just don't. I want them all to match my studio strobes anyway. And the other question somebody asked was, what would Nikon benefit from putting out a rangefinder? No competition. You've got Fuji putting out rangefinder-like cameras, and that's about it. Maybe some Leicas, but I think there's a market for rangefinders out there. And there's also people that never shot rangefinder. You know how many kids grew up on things and never touched a rangefinder that might completely be psyched? They're all shooting point and shoot film cameras right now. Imagine them with a rangefinder. They might be really into it.
Actually, a
Aiko's asked whether we missed the mechanical shutter. I have had absolutely zero reason to miss the mechanical shutter, but that might be more in reference to in flash photography, which I haven't done yet.
I haven't seen any difference.
No, the only thing that I miss is like the physical
noise
feel of, not even noise really, because the noise was kind of annoying. I turned the sound on my Z9 off. It's just the physical feel of the camera firing, if that makes sense, the tactile feel of it. But
and that's really interesting, because I noticed, that was one of the first things I noticed. I didn't realize that we actually could feel it, but we can, and now we can't. It's gone. So I agree. I'm not that worried about it though, personally.
I will say this, being a guy who has a Z9 here, an Alpha One, a GFX, and all these others here, I can say that out of all of them, for the silent, like the fake shutter sound, even the R3, which has a speaker somewhere else, the Nikon's is right here. And what I've tested out is that I can put the volume all the way down and only I hear it. Nobody else does. So I get my own audio confirmation. And then me and Ricci found out by accident, if you put in your headphones, you can hear your shutter just by yourself. So if you are like a BTS film photographer and you're shooting behind the scenes, but you still somehow need an audio confirmation, you can use the headphone jack and listen to the shutter yourself. So I mean, it's just sick that it's like right there, the speaker. So you hear it at the lowest volume. It's kind of, can you guys even hear if I do this?
I mean, you can make it very quiet.
No, I'm struggling.
I hear it totally fine.
I can't hear it. Oh, yeah. I'm hearing that now. When you go, yeah. Yeah. I think your audio's it's cutting out when it doesn't hear anything. But yeah. I haven't noticed any issues with not having a shutter. It's all upside from my perspective. Do you have?
Adorama says we spoil him. This is mine, Adorama. This is yours, Adorama. I love that Adorama's watching me. My parents never let me hang out with my friends.
They've come to spy on what you're doing.
Isn't it after hours, Seth? Come on, isn't it like 8 o'clock? You're never
like 3 years ago.
Oh, there you go. I see. This is The Devil's Advocate. Do you remember that movie?
Oh, good. Yeah, of course I remember that movie. Charlize Theron.
Yeah.
So, what is do you with the shutter button on the Z9 had haptic feedback? Do I wish that haptic feedback? If it caused the camera to shake for some unneeded reason, then no, I don't need it.
No, I don't need it.
Companies spent literally millions of dollars trying to dampen a mirror movement and put in, counterweight to a mirror and a shutter movement. And now we've removed the shutter. We're not going to put any more vibrations back into the camera. So I completely appreciate why that doesn't happen, because it's just going to obviously cause internal vibrations, which is what you want to try and get rid of at all times.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of handheld slow shutter, and I'm very, very happy to not have any introduced movement. So I'm actually super excited about the lack of shutter, to be honest. I'm super excited that you can be silent, deadly silent in all situations. That's just great. What else you got?
Dave Roberts, no, I could not hook up wireless headphones, at least not myself, or at least yet. So no, I could not, no.
Someone's wondering, how do we submit suggestions to Nikon?
There's a couple of different ways you can do that. Probably the easiest way is if you're an MPS member. Different regions are slightly different, but MPS have something called the Voice of the Professional, which is like a collection of recommendations or problems or issues or just ways that people shoot, and that all gets fed back directly to Japan. So especially if you're an MPS member, that's one of the easiest ways. There are other ways that you can recommend things. You can go through, Nikon representatives. You can go through people who work for Nikon. Sometimes they'll feed it back. Sometimes just depends on what that topic is, because if they know it's already been fed back, or if they know it's already been covered, then it won't really go much further. But there's always stuff that's, we're finding, and there's always stuff that I suggest and stuff that we want to send back. And some of it happens, some of it can't happen. Don't ever feel disappointed if something that you really badly want never happens. But generally, if enough people want something, you'll generally see that it happens. But they are always looking at what the biggest requests
are. So someone has just said that on the Cine D review that there's no image stabilization on 8K. And it's like, I'm sure there's image stabilization on 8K. And so I've just checked, and image stabilization is on, and I'm on 8K. So I'm not sure what Cine D would do.
Unless they mean digital.
Digital. Well, they might have meant digital, but now that this person mentions that, I think the Cine D review did say that there was no Stabe on 8K. And I can tell you there's definitely Stabe on 8K because I've shot it and I've used it and it's brilliant. And you guys are going to see a film from me in the next 48 hours, which is going to show that off and just show off the 8K. And it's freaking awesome.
So you can have, in 8K, you can have vibration reduction turned on, but you can't have electronic VR turned on.
Yeah, which, the preference would be to have IBIS, not electronic anyway. Yeah. So I'm good with that. I would always minimize the usage of electronic VR if you can.
I just picked up that there was the 24-105 lens history. So just to be clear on that, there was obviously a 24-105 that was on the roadmap. That lens that was on the roadmap is non-existent because it was actually a 24-120.
Surprise!
So yeah, there is no 24-105 on the roadmap. It was that 24-120. However, if Nikon decide to make a 24-105 in the future with a different aperture or whatever, then they could do. But that's not that lens. Let's be very clear.
And it just that reminds me of a question that someone said, and I saw this in Nikon Rumors or somewhere, that when you put the 24-120, you're forced to use no shutter. Now I can hear the shutter firing. So what are people talking about there?
Oh, so you basically can't use full mechanical. So you use front electronic curtain.
Right.
So there's certain lenses. There's other lenses that do this as well. So like the 100-400, the 24-120. There's a couple of other lenses. I think it's like the 28mm. They just won't let you use a full mechanical shutter. You have to use a front electronic curtain. The rear is still mechanical, so that's why you still hear the shutter. And obviously, let's keep in mind, it's not the same as full electronic, because full electronic would then have a different readout, and you'd have problems with not being able to use flash, all that type of stuff. So
yeah,
just comes down to different lenses.
I definitely need a lesson on the difference between those different types of shutter, but maybe today's not the time for it.
A bit late for that.
Yeah, let's definitely not make you talk about that. Do we need to send you some caffeine, Richie?
No, I'm all right. I'm good.
I don't drink coffee either.
Someone in the chat is asking, with Sony canceling suspending cameras, do you think 2022 will be quiet for all brands, excluding the Lumix GH6? Well, I don't know why you're excluding the GH6, but
that's bizarre.
I'll say this. I think the announcements for things will start getting more logical. Like what I think happened here with the Z9, and Richie can totally not talk about this, but I personally think it was supposed to be announced earlier in 2021. And what we did was skip the whole announcement and the delay angst, and then we got the announcement. So I think that's what's going to go on happen. What we used to get was the announcement, and then a couple months, then you could order and ship it. I think what they're going to do is, instead of doing the announcement before they think they can ship it, until they know they can ship, we will then get the announcement. So we might just see. I can tell you right now, I know starting off in January, a lot of brands are ready to make a lot of noise, and that's all I can say. I do not think 2022 will be quiet at all. I think a lot of things that you didn't even hear about in 2021 are going to hit 2022, and the industry might think they're delayed, but the public won't even realize it.
Yeah, well, it's like the new the new lens roadmap. There's always things that they just simply don't put on it. So we're going to get some lenses that I'm guessing that just appear out of nowhere. So that's very exciting stuff.
Adorama, I didn't say anything.
He just all he said was, "There's a big party coming, big party." What else we got going on there?
Miguel doesn't like my work. He just loves Richie and Matt. Thanks, Miguel.
Ozzy, no worries. I'll check Nikon rumors again. No problem. Thank you for that.
I did see there's a lot of people asking about like if a camera can be locked. I do get that, obviously, like against theft and so on, just like a pin or a combination of buttons. It is something that a lot of people have talked about for a long time, but I've not heard anything on that. So I think the first response that we can see to some of that is that most of the newer high-end lenses, and obviously the Z9, have Kensington locks built in. So it's not the same. I appreciate that, but it's going in the right direction, if that makes sense.
James, thanks for shouting out the calendar. He says he loves the calendar, and here it is. I might as well promote my calendar. If you want to get a calendar, we send them all over the world. Grab yourself one. Awesome. What else we got going on down there? The comments are going crazy. Go, Seth.
So so Jaspreet, if I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, has said a couple of times, I wish Nikon would put Z lenses out with the cine housing so they have the markings on and stuff. I think what you're going to see is once the Z mount finally gets licensed to other lenses, or if third-party lenses like cine that don't need autofocus protocols decide to make a Z mount lens, they will make the markings for cine glass. Like you might see Cook glass or, whoever else making cine glass for the Z mount, since it's such a powerhouse in video. I just don't see Nikon needing to put out more lenses than they have to when they have to fill orders in the state of the world right now.
Someone was asking way back about profiles for the N-Log, for the Nikon N-Log. Are we going to get new ones or the same ones or same one? What's the deal with when that stuff comes?
I think there'll be obviously a lot of stuff that changes when firmware updates become available.
Yeah, great.
That's all I can say.
Okay. Yep. No worries. That's good. Something to look forward to. Let's look forward to that, everybody. That's cool. No, it's good. Someone says we should get into a drinking game. What is it, Tony? 56 man a drinking game swings into action. Okay. Rightio.
Let me ask you guys. I think we're going to see a lot of Z9s at the Super Bowl. I think that's the first big event that's coming up, which is February here in America. And that's like a holiday to people. To me, it's just another day, but sometimes I win money. I think we're going to see a lot of Z9s on those sidelines. Richie, you think they're just going to be like handing them out to loners, to people that want to grab them, or what?
Well, I mean, that's what they've always done in the past at big MPS events, right? You've all seen the shots of like the MPS cupboards at the Olympics and stuff like that. There's always been a large quantity of D5s, D6s, other cameras that can just be accessible to MPS members at those big events. So it would be common sense to say that we would do the same thing. How many, I don't know. I know how many MPS in the UK have, but I don't know how many, obviously, MPS regions around the world have. So, yeah, I'm not sure there'll be, obviously, as many available as D6s and D5s because they've been out for much longer. But I do think that, especially from a big event point of view, it would make sense to have people shooting on newer stuff. Especially if we have, when is Super Bowl?
Early February, I think.
Oh, okay.
I don't even know.
I didn't know if it was later in the year or anything like that. But, especially if we have Z9 and if we have longer glass, like more than just like a 100 to 400, or if there was like 400 2.8, 800 mil, 600, 200 to 600, whatever it is, it kind of makes sense that, people would want to use the newest stuff. So.
People, of course.
Rod Marr.
Sorry.
If you guys want to see sports shots from the Z9, Rod Marr, the Seattle Seahawks NFL photographer, just shot a snowstorm game. They were in a freaking blizzard, and he shot with the Z9. If you want to see that thing perform in all weather, especially snow that could easily trip up autofocus, go check out Rod Marr, RODMAR on Instagram.
Does Adobe Camera Raw support Z9 files? We're saying yes. Is that right, Richie?
Yeah, just not the
not the high efficiency.
No, not the high efficiency ones. Just the lossless currently. Obviously, that will change in the future. So,
and of course, we are getting some questions around firmware updates for the Z6 II, Z7 II. From my perspective, they're going to come at some point. You know, they're somewhere over the hill.
I mean, I think the updates for Z6 and Z7 were completely unexpected
and amazing.
I know that obviously a lot of people wanted them. So, but there was no people talking about them. People wanted them, but there was no like, oh, that update should become available soon or whatever. And I think we're kind of in a position where, because lots of people are talking about this supposed update to Z6 and Z7 too, it kind of makes people feel a little bit more impatient. And I mean that in the kindest way possible. But people are still asking about when's it coming. And like, no one's confirmed anything. I've not seen anything. I've not seen anything that said there's even going to be an update. And obviously I normally see things ahead of time, and I genuinely haven't seen anything. So if it's available soon, it's available soon. If it's available not to the end of the year, it's not available to the end of the year. If there's never another update, then it is what it is. But I would like to think that there is something coming at some point.
Good answer. I like it. What are people talking about? Z6 threes and Z7 threes already? Okay.
It's amazing. It really is amazing.
I'm sure they're coming too, because this goes on forever. I mean, the Sonys are doing their 4s, and we'll probably see a 5, won't we? Which are we going to see next? The A7R5 is probably where Sony will get to their first 5 iteration. Do we reckon we'll see that next year? I reckon we'll see that next year.
Nikon's been on track. They do between August and October is when they do their announcements of like the next gen of things. So that's all I can say. I don't know anything insider information, but if I had to throw money at it, and I am a gambling man, I would throw between August and October at least. And I am a ask Adorama in the chat what happens when we do Vegas shows.
Oh Jesus!
Dropping money on tables.
Know when to hold them. That's you, eh?
The way I go into Vegas is I go to a table that has a 50-50 odds. I drop $100 down. If I win, that's my money to bet with for the rest of the time I'm there. If I lose, I walk away, and I don't bet again unless no one's watching. But but I try not to.
No one's realized that I put another $200 on the table. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I won that. It didn't come out of my wallet. I won that. I won
it. This was here when I started. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's just so much fun to the idea that there's like all or nothing to me. I just love that whole like tension. That is just great. Someone's asking if Z9 could get 16-bit with a firmware update. I don't know if that's possible.
It would depend on the architecture of the sensor, because if the sensor can't do it, then no matter what your firmware is and no matter what your processor is, it's just not going to do it. So I don't know. I've not seen that much detail.
Yep. And I don't know either, by the way.
Okay.
Just in case.
I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to ask a question that Ricci's tired of, and I don't care.
Yeah.
Be
nice.
If
I've got the kill button. I've got the kill button ready to go.
Could Nikon give us a firmware update that lets high efficiency Star give us 30 frames per second RAW files? Because if it's a compressed RAW file in the Alpha 1, because you don't get full RAW in the Alpha 1 at 30 frames, you get compressed RAW. If high efficiency Star is a compressed RAW, can we do 30 frames per second on that? Do you think they can do it? Can we wish it into existence?
Is the A1 12-bit or 14-bit?
The RAW file?
In 30
no, you mean when you do 30? Oh, you know what? Yeah. I don't even know.
That's because I think that's the problem, because obviously everything currently on a Z9 is 14-bit. It's prioritizing 14-bit. And when you go to 30 frames a second, it gives you JPEG rather than going to 12-bit. So it might be that because the A1's gone to 12-bit, I don't know. I'm waiting for you to tell me. It might be because the A1's gone to 12-bit that's why it's possible.
Well, the fast video is at 12-bit, so that's logical that we're talking about in future firmware updates. So tell us, where is it? Can anyone tell us, does the Sony A1 shoot 30 frames per second in 14-bit or 12-bit? Is there anyone out there who knows?
Looking.
He's looking. Let's just do some feeling. You do know.
Yeah,
You know what the Sony does.
Rhode Island is neither a road nor an island. Have a discussion. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we were going to talk about the intelligence of octopuses, so let's just go through that. They're highly intelligent. Tell us what you know. I mean, they've got 8 legs. That's tough just to deal with 8 legs to begin with.
I know.
Yeah.
The key, going back to the question, what I was going to say, I think it could be that it's to do with bit depth, and it might be that Nikon just didn't want to do 12-bit anything, but I don't know. Again, it's one of those things that I've not seen anything about, and obviously 30 frames a second is still JPEG currently,
or 120.
Yeah, 120 frames is still obviously JPEG as well, but lower megapixel count.
Of course. It's
there are quite a lot of things that change when you go into like 30 frames a second and 120 frames a second as well. So it's not just a case of it's like a set mode.
So two websites I'm finding are saying, and I've never even heard this, but the most you get is 13 bits and never hits 14 bits on the Sony RAW, which I don't know if that's actual fact, but if they say 13, I'm going to guess it defaults to 12. You know how there's always like effective, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think it's actually 12-bit. Yeah.
Eric is saying here 12-bit.
Okay.
Someone else is saying.
Yeah. So I mean,
they have 12 and 14-bit. Someone else.
That could be the sticking point, that they didn't want to go down the route of 12-bit. But I'm based on that on just my nothing at all. So it could be that at some point that changes from JPEG to like a 12-bit high efficiency RAW, whatever that looks like. But currently high efficiency RAW is only 14, and that might be the reason why it can't do it, because it's a 14-bit file as opposed to a 12-bit file.
Huh? Yeah, but can't you just tell the camera to throttle it?
Yeah, but that's the thing. You don't have a choice on a Z9. Like on every other camera, you have the choice of going to 12-bit at all times, but on a Z9, you don't. It's everything is 14-bit.
No, I'm saying if they go to 30 frames per second, high efficiency star RAW, the camera automatically clips into a 12-bit scenario.
It just might be that high efficiency was never designed with a 12-bit file in mind, because all of the high efficiency, even high efficiency and high efficiency star, they've been built from the ground up as 14-bit files, and then obviously really efficient compression, if that makes sense.
I suppose that ultimately means that could be all reprogrammed over time. So,
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to rain on anybody's parade.
No.
But I also, I wouldn't expect it, because it's JPEG, but it could change.
Yep. Look, Nikon does weird things. They gave the Z6 Gen 1 voice memo. Why? So, I mean, they do weird things, so I don't know.
Apparently, it was a requested feature.
And raw video.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to answer this one because I got this like 16 times in my DMs. They're asking, how about the 1/400th second shutter speed for flash sync? And here's why that doesn't matter. And here's why I was initially wrong when I was so psyched about it. The 400th of a second is just a little nudge faster than the typical 250th of a second we've been having for ages. When you're doing flash sync and you want to do what we do in a high-speed sync scenario, which is open up wide and get a shallow depth of field and underexpose your ambient, you're going to 2,000th, 4,000, 8,000th of a second and using high-speed sync. I have the Alpha One here and I've been using it, and it's a phenomenal camera. It really is. But I've never found myself getting to a scenario where the 400th was fast enough for what I needed, and I was going into high-speed sync anyway. So that wasn't enough of a selling point for me to have a mechanical shutter, which basically makes the camera have a fail point at some point of actuations, especially at a camera that's going to be rated for 20 plus frames per second hammering down. You're just going to take the life of that camera down on a pro body. So that being said, unless you show me a flash sync on a mechanical shutter that somehow does like 2,000th of a second like a leaf shutter can, it doesn't make any difference. It really doesn't. Also, you can mitigate the extra stop by going to 64 ISO instead of starting at 100 ISO or 200 ISO, and you can draw it back that way. I could go on forever about this, but I'm just going to say that at first I was so excited about the boosted flash sync on the Alpha 1, and then I found myself never using it and always ending up in high-speed sync anyway. So I was wrong off the bat, apparently. I just didn't even think about that because we never had that use case before, but that's my whatever.
So essentially, Seth, what we're saying there is the ultimate outcome between the A1 and the Z9 is near on the same, and stop worrying about it. Like, I saw a chain somewhere of someone just totally putting the boot in the difference between the 400th and the 250th, and ultimately it's just like, seriously, you're just picking nits here. Like, it's just, and with the ISO differences, it becomes like, it actually becomes irrelevant, right? Like, from a light gathering,
light gathering, but the only time it would make a difference is if you're like at an event and you think that you can freeze people just that more. But from 250th to 400th, it is a third of a stop. It's not even like really.
Yeah. And also if you're using a flash like this, again, this is not every case, but if you're using a flash, the flash freezes the subject like as well, right? Depending on ambient light. Depending on ambient light. Yeah. So this really becomes, and I suppose this segues me a little bit into the conversation of where, which is one of my pet things, is when are we going to stop talking about these 1% differences and how that means the end of a company, the end of a company, the end of the world. And we're talking about 1%, 0.5%, and it's like, seriously, dude, I don't give a flying F that your Ferrari does 310 and my Ferrari does 295. I don't care. I tell you what's more important to me. Does the camera fit in my hand? Are the ergonomics good? Can I take it out into the forest and I don't even have to think about the rain, the snow, the sand, or the dust? Because that's what actually matters to me in most situations, not a 1% difference. Can we stop talking about it?
Wait. My favorite part of the whole thing is that Nikon for 3 to 5 years has taken a beating and punched to death, and they just stayed quiet and stayed their course. And now Nikon puts out a camera that jumped the progression point and sets the stage for a Gen 3 that they're ready to get into their market base. And it's awesome. They have one of the best entry-level cameras, full frame, there is, the Z5. They have the most progressive, probably, body with an electronic shutter only for $1,000 less than the competition flagship. They have Z6 3 and 7 III on the horizon that could easily use the new processor or the stack sensor if they wanted or whatever to then set the stage further. And they've done everything at a price point lower than everyone else. They kept the Z6 at $2,000. They did the Z9 at $5,500. All the other competitions at $2,500 or $6,500. And it's just kind of like no one gave them credit. They didn't even ask for credit. All they were basically asking for was get your foot off our neck and stop punching us in the balls. And that's kind of what I love is they just came out and did what they wanted to do anyway, I mean, they took a beating, but let's be honest. Every channel was jumping on like thumbnails about Nikon going out of business and Nikon bankrupt and Nikon this, Nikon that, and went out of their way to like smack them for things. And one of the things I found really interesting was when the 4K 60 came out for the Z6 II, it was cropped. And I got a ton of people making fun of it. Then the Sony a7 IV came out and the 4K 60 is cropped a year later for $500 more. And no one, all of a sudden, that's okay. So it's really a perception thing in a market base, and it's driven by people that just follow what's said instead of getting the gear in your hands, seeing what works for you, making it your tool to get your shots and make yourself happy with it.
100% shot with the Z system. And I do this for a living. So where's the fail? I rest my case.
Listen, there's systems that no one even talks about because they're just not popular that people absolutely love. Look at the Pentax system. People will die on that Pentax sword. They love that system, right?
Yeah,
so
of course.
Then enjoy it. It's your system. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
It gives you what you want, whatever it is. Enjoy it. Okay? Shoot. Yeah. The whole point of this is to care about shooting and not buying a box full of specs and going, I win, I paid money.
Yeah.
What? Like, get out of here.
Yeah. Yep. Richie, I think you need to fill for a second. We're both spent.
That's fine. I was going to pick up on what we were talking about a couple of days ago, how we were talking about how like products, there's not really like a reaction product, right? So
it's impossible.
Lots of people always think that like, oh, it's like Sony launches something, then like the next company launches something, and then the next company launches something. There's like a reaction to that product. And it's like, people always say, oh, like this company's launched this, so what's Nikon going to do? Or Nikon's launched this, so what's this company going to do? And like, you don't make a Z9 in 6 months. So like there isn't reactionary products, products are in development.
I'm sorry. No. There's still wet glue on here from when Nikon put this together when they heard about the Alpha 1. They heard about the A1.
Yeah.
What R3? Wait, quick, glue this on there. Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. I mean, the Z9 has been in development for years. Literally, and I mean multiple years. You can't just all of a sudden say, oh, because this company's made this camera, this other company has to go make that camera, right? It's the way it works. And it's the same thing. Like there's always a new camera. There's always a new camera. Does it mean that you have to always have that new camera? Absolutely not. There's still people who love shooting D40s. There's still people who love shooting D90s. D90, one of the best cameras for color. It's so good at color. And yet, it's a great starting camera, but would you use it professionally now? These are the questions that people always ask about. And I think sometimes it kind of muddies the water, because as long as the camera is good enough for you, that's all that matters. And I think sometimes people try and aim to try and get like the best they can, but should you be upgrading or changing your camera every year? No, and it's like when the Z6 II and the Z7 II launched, loads of people thought, oh, that as a Z6 and a Z7 user, that product is for me. And it wasn't really the case. That product doesn't necessarily mean that as a Z6 and a Z7 user, you need to go and upgrade straight away. It's just a new camera. There's always new cameras. And you can continue using the camera that you have. You can continue going to new cameras if you want to. Hell, I can't tell you how to spend your money. If you want to spend it on new cameras, knock yourself out, right? So I think it just comes down to understanding what new cameras can do. And obviously, there is a generational jump every now and again. Like every now and again, there's a camera that comes through that is just so much better than everything else. But for some years before that, maybe there was cameras that were very similar and there wasn't really much that changed, i.e. D5, D6, right? So there's always generational leaps and it's always different for every brand. And, yes, obviously they're still in competition with each other, but not in competition over months. They're in competition over years. Camera manufacturers play the long game. It's not, the short game. So I think sometimes that just gets forgotten because there's a lot of people that have access to a lot of different cameras, and every month they're reviewing a different camera, and it makes it look like you should always have that newest camera. And I think that's what kind of causes the problem sometimes.
Well, look, I'm not hiding anything here. I do a lot of content production every day for a retailer, right? Adorama TV. You guys see me on there and you guys should buy stuff, right? And the reality is that you shouldn't. The reality is even Adorama understands the idea of community in this industry equals longevity. They don't want to sell you the most expensive, craziest stuff and then have you get frustrated and walk away from this forever. What we teach you guys at Adorama, and this is coming from a guy who's producing for a retailer that sells stuff, use the gear till it hits a point where it's not doing something you're trying to do. If the tool isn't producing for you, that's when you start looking for, well, I need something that focuses closer. I need macro work. I'm going to get a macro lens. That's when you start looking at stuff like that. It's not, well, this one's better, throw this one away. Let's get this one. It's not about that. It's about you guys being psyched on what you're doing, the tools that are in your hand and what you're creating with those tools. And now all the tech gap is closed up, guys. You now have a choice of philosophy of the brand. What do you see in them as a history? How do they support the people that buy their gear? How consistent does their gear come out? Can you trust it? Do they do firmware updates? Are they everything using the same battery? Will you always have the same battery throughout the whole system? Stuff like that is the things you look at. And the system as a whole, and does it fit you as a creator? And not everybody has that. Nikon, I love it. But if you told me you were a filmmaker and you were going to need something that matches your cinema camera, it might not be the way. Maybe Canon with their cinema line, with their mirrorless line, match better for you, and you get codecs that match. That might be a better position for you. Either system's great to me. It's philosophies, guys, and there's influencers that are in the business of getting you to click on things, and controversy gets clicks. And that's how we keep the stirring up. Don't be surprised if one day you start seeing all those same influencers start telling you Sony's going out of business, because that'll get you to click on it, right? Because they said Sony was a god for so long. And listen, Sony is a great company. They make amazing technological, progressive stuff, incredible stuff. I'm not knocking them. But this is a game of perception when it comes to marketing. And you as creators need, at the very core of what you're doing, to not stop creating. And that's why we stand by the create no matter what thing. That's why we stand by that mantra. Sorry.
I love it. I love it. It's a crescendo. It's a beautiful thing. So Richie, it's 1:20 in the morning. How you going? Should we should we call for last questions out there from the world for?
I'm good if you guys want to continue for a bit. But,
yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Cool. Any more questions out there, people? Talk to us. What have you got?
By the way, me and Richie both know an army of people that will be buried with their D7200s. Did you know that's the only camera ever created, apparently? Oh my God.
Yeah.
I can't wait for trade shows to come back, Richie. One day.
I mean, I do get it, right? Because it's like we all have like that one camera that we really enjoy using. But sometimes that blinds you into its capability. You might think that it's the best camera in the world when actually you're just a really good photographer. So I think there's some cases where the camera is better than the photographer, and there's some cases where the photographer is better than the camera. So it just comes down to making sure that the camera, like you said, does what you need it to do and use it until it doesn't work for you, right?
And, does it give you the image that you're after, really? Does it give you that color, because you're shooting the sensor based on what it, then processing based on what it is, so you point 12 cameras at the same item, at the same settings, you're getting a different image from every camera. So it's got to speak your language,
Yeah, well, that's right.
Man,
I did see a question that's been asked a couple of times, which is low light performance of Z9. So I don't know if you guys want to talk about what your experience has been with kind of low light performance so far, and then I'll talk about what my experiences are.
Yeah, well, low light for me, doing what I do, I think is improved immensely. The way I've used the Z9 is not to scientifically test it, but to just go out there and do what I normally do. And I've got to be honest, it's such a massive shift in form factor, and the EVF is so much larger, and there's so many changes that it's taking a little while just to soak it all in and feel how it does things differently, to be honest. But yeah, like if we're talking about low light performance in regards to focus, or just low light in general, what's the question?
I think it was ISO, I think.
Yeah, look, so far I think it's pretty much the same as what I'm seeing, not maybe from a Z7, which is the same as a Z7 II. It's sort of too early to say, and I haven't done side by sides, but much the same. How about you, Seth? He's having a look right now.
I've honestly been shocked by the low light autofocus.
Yeah,
I really
that's
have.
Crazy.
Doesn't it remind you of the DSLR days? Like, doesn't it remind you of that? Like, it didn't matter. You just happened to be in the dark, and it focused anyway. I mean, it's just crazy. When people first started preaching mirrorless to me, that was the two things that didn't click for me when they put it in my hands was, and this was, 6 years ago, I was like, wow, the EVF looks like a bunch of blurry pixels to me. It doesn't feel like I'm shooting. And two, the low light was weird. It wasn't there because the camera was running through the sensor. It wasn't an optical system. So it was just kind of weird for me. There is a question, I think Richie already answered this in the beginning. Can you explain the firmware update that they just heard about coming for the Z9 already? Not the big one, the one that's happening on January 5th. Is that just a bunch of bug squashes or something, or?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that change with buffer, and if you're shooting to multiple cards, and if you're shooting multiple formats, so if you're shooting RAW and JPEG, or if you're shooting JPEG and JPEG to 2 cards, and then there's a couple of things that get fixed as well, so like bugs and stuff like that. So a small update, I would say, but a welcome one for some of the improvements. But just be aware, it's obviously not the big updates that will come down the line next year.
Nice question.
I love. Oh. I just want to say I love updating my camera via my phone. That's like my favorite thing to do, is just like go for my phone and it says, oh, you have an update. I feel like I got mail, like you got mail. And I go click and just loads it into my camera.
Wow, I haven't done that yet. Turn R asks, are there any lenses that we'd like to see for the Z mount? What would we personally like to see next? So not what is happening, just what would we like? Well, one of them is, he's got one of them. Prototype.
I was going to say.
This is the 8 to 15 millimeter zoom fisheye.
Is that sad that I knew what that lens was just from the lens hood?
Dude, I love this lens.
No, that's awesome.
I love this lens.
Maximum
so
nerd.
This lens, actually, can I put it on right now? Hold on, I'm going to put it on right now.
Yeah, do it, baby. Do it. Obviously,
it might get bright.
The 85 1.2, but I'm pretty pumped by all the lenses that are here. Turn R. I'm not an overly long.
For me, the 800. My most favorite focal length, if I'm shooting wildlife, is like a 600, and I just never really used an 800 because the 800 5.6 was so big, and I really like the idea of it, that 800 and that Z800 is kind of what I'm really interested in. Possibly the Z400 2.8, because that obviously also gives me a 500, but that 800 could be great. So really looking forward to that.
I mean, the 400 PF, it does excite me just because it's, well, I think, do we know if it's PF yet? Anyway, whatever it is, that smaller 400.
It's a smaller 400.
Yeah, it's certainly it's either a PF or it's an F12 or something. Either way, it's small. That interests me because of its size. Like, it's a great to have. And is it policy? Maybe you can't answer this. That everything long is teleconvertible, like everything over 200 or whatever.
Generally, I mean, that was the case with F-mount. So the expectation would be that everything longer would be teleconvertible. Obviously, just with the exception of a wide to tele, like a 24 to 200. So
I have to say something. I was using the Z teleconverter with the 70 to 200 with the Z9, shooting these crazy fast moving swallows, or I don't know what birds they are. Someone please tell me, which is in the thumbnail of my previous video. And I could not believe I was able to focus with the 2x tele with that lens. It is so fast. So ridiculous focus speed.
That's one of the things that you always were restricted on with DSLRs, is that you would always have a light limit. So if you were using like a 2x tele on like an f5.6 lens, you'd start to run into issues with the amount of available light. And obviously mirrorless cameras can get around that because they're not using a separate focusing sensor that is trying to get light from a mirror system.
Well, what I was impressed by was also just the speed. You know, I've got the teleconverter and the lens, and I was in DX mode, and I still managed to nail like, 10 frames in a row of these crazy, and this is horizontal. And anyway, I was impressed. I've never pushed the teleconverter or the 7200 that hard, and it was great.
So everyone asked me why I couldn't put this on, because Nikon made this stupid FTZ adapter.
Yeah.
And I'd have to
Living
take it
the dream.
The tripod.
What you need is one of these.
I want one of those too.
No. What Nikon needs to do is put that out in the beginning, Ricci. What happened there, Ricci?
Yeah.
You want to tell me what's up with Canon?
There is a motor. There is a motor in there, right? So what they originally put in there is a motor. Now that motor is somewhere different in here.
Canon crushed the adapter game when they dropped the R series. They did such a good job
with Z lenses. So you should use Z lenses instead of an adapter.
Then make this lens. Make this lens, Ricci. Where's my lens,
I will personally go and make it for you. I will go and hand build you an 8 to 15. Would you prefer a 6
Hey, everybody, give the video a like. We'd love to have a like. It'll get the word out there to everybody. So please liking, and don't forget to check out these guys' channels and Instagrams and all of that crazy stuff as well. Sorry, go on.
This is so ridiculous. Oh my God. I honestly, the adapter was the biggest issue I had with the Z system because it was just bigger than all the other ones. It was more expensive than the other ones. If I have to critique Nikon on anything with the Z that I was really irritated by, it was the adapter. It really was. Sorry, guys, hang on.
Yeah, well, the idea of having they had the adapter with the drop-in filters or whatever they were doing there, didn't they? They've got that.
Well, they did that, but they gave you, so Canon did 3 adapters. One that was bare bones, $100. It was just an adapter that worked. Awesome, right? Then they did the same adapter with the control ring built in. So every lens you put on there gets a custom control ring. Awesome. Then they made the one with the drop-in polarizer in the back, which is cool, but you don't get that feature with any of the RF mount. So it's kind of like, I don't know how to.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, okay. Well, swings and roundabouts.
A lot of people were talking about either a 105 1.4 or a 135 focal length. Would you prefer a 105 or a 135?
If they did a 105, I want it to be a really wide aperture. Like I have the 24 to 120 f4. So if I get a 24 to 105, then give me like a 2.8 on that, or give me that killer 105 1.4 as a 1.2.
Yeah.
In the Z mount.
Take no prisoners. 1.2. There's no such thing as 1.4 from the Nikon Z range anymore. It's a 1.8 or it's a 1.2. We don't mess around with 1.4. That's what it looks like to me. I think
have I frozen?
That's your next
shirt. Your face is frozen, but we can hear you. I thought that was just your reaction. It's like the best poker face I've ever seen. It was completely frozen.
Right. I'll see if I can bring my video back. I apologize.
Yeah. No, that's all right. At least we've got the dulcet tones of your voice still coming through live. Yeah, we can still hear you, and that's the important point. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think going forward, all these growing pains that people have problems with, which, the adapted lenses and stuff like that, is just going to go away. I mean, after a while, the people that have DSLRs are going to be like, that's my system, the DSLR. And the people that are in mirrorless systems for whatever brand will be like, I'm in the RF system, I'm in the Z system, and it'll just be systems, there's no more bridging the gap of the,
Yeah, it's an interesting question how long it will take the majority of people to decide to either stay in mirrored or to move. But I agree with you. There will be a time in the not too distant future where that movement stops and people will settle in one place or the other. And then we won't have to worry about adapters.
Well, the other thing is a lot of used mirrorless cameras will be the price of DSLR. So you're kind of like going, well, why would you? Right. So, but that being said, I still like, look, I got my D850 down here. I'm never getting rid of it. It's my last DSLR I'll ever own, but I still love it, and I like having optical in studio settings. Optical really is great. It really is.
Yeah. Look, however, I've still got my D850s. I don't use it. But how often do you actually use it, Seth?
Nah, not anymore. And I'll tell you why. The only thing that optical doesn't have is focus points across the whole viewfinder.
Yes.
So
I went back and used mine, and I'm like, oh, I forgot the D4. When I was using the D4 a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I forgot that it's just this little clump in the middle, like about that big, and it was like, oh, I forgot about that.
Yep.
So yeah. It's a lot for those who haven't moved over yet. The freedom of essentially the whole frame. I mean, they don't use the kind of 1% around the edge because there's no point. But essentially, shooting with the whole frame is very, very exciting, and you don't have to recompose.
Well, that's the thing is we grew up on the focus recompose knee-jerk muscle memory, and it's really hard to break that. So I understand that. And I just want to say to the people that have been saying the same thing, I'm with you. I think Nikon needs a no EVF flip out screen, USB powered streamer camera. They need to make a small footprint camera that I don't use a Z6, but I get everything.
The ARC sort of
He's
style.
using a virtual bokeh. He went from a 1.2 Nikon lens to fake ass bokeh. Look at you.
He actually looks like the Emperor there from Star Wars or something with that chair.
This is what you get from an Apple built-in webcam, obviously.
There you go. Like the Sith Lord.
I think like Zoom's like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. So I'd probably have to restart Zoom, and I can't be bothered to do that. So
yeah. That's good.
I thought I'd just jump to this. At least you can still see me.
Look, the same thing
Tony,
happened to me.
Tom Webb, I'm going to call you out on this one. So Tom Webb says we need some actual groundbreaking lenses that this new system. Here's what you guys aren't looking at. You're looking at glass that is most time less weight, most time smaller, but all the time not breathing. The fact that it's quiet, faster focusing, no sound, and doesn't breathe. When I was on the road with my D850 and I had to use, when I was on the road with my F-mount lenses on my Z camera and I had to record myself, it looked like my camera was having a seizure and I could hear the motor flying all over the place. They did create a great series of lenses that don't breathe, and not every system can say that. I'm just saying.
Sorry, I'm just looking for.
And they're cheaper. Look at this guy.
I'm looking.
Look at this guy.
You guys keep going.
Look at this.
I want to show you something. Where is it? Anyway, keep talking. You guys, Phil.
Yeah,
Phil,
I would say this. I would say the Nikon. If Nikon did a studio micro like the Blackmagic, maybe the micro has no screen on it. I think you just need something easy for like some Twitch kid to put it down, flip out the screen, and just start streaming. I think that's what we need right now. Something very cheap and easy to get into.
Look, I'm looking for my Sony 24-105 just to show you how the Nikon 24-120 and the Sony 24-105 are the same size, but the Nikon gives you more, except I can't find the Sony. Oh, here it is.
Nikon, we give you more.
That's it.
So,
okay,
wait.
Here we go, people. You want to talk about good lenses? I don't know if... Sony, there you have the 24-105, right? And that's that one. And then here is the Nikon, and this has got a lens cap on it. It's looking bigger, and it's got a filter on it. Anyway, they are basically the same size, and the Sony's actually wider in the girth, right? So I don't know. I think there's a lot of misinformation around Nikon's lenses. Some of them, like the 50mm 1.2, sure, it's epic, but it's epic. It's an amazing lens optically.
And a lot of times for the E mount, they have to adjust that back end to be wider so that it can cover the crop that happens from the mount on the sensor. The mount is small and actually crops the sensor, and you can get vignetting. So that's where they change it. I do want to say to someone in the chat, I think his name was Greg Corker, Sony has not announced the end of the A7C. Sony has announced the pausing of manufacturing. There's a big difference. They're pausing manufacturing on certain models so that they can get on track with things like the A7 IV that has massive pre-orders. The A1 needs stock filled. You know, these cameras are more important for them than the A7C. So it's not done. Sony is just pausing things, and that's a tough call, and I have to give them credit that they had to pull these triggers. I mean, you got to give them credit, guys. That's a hard call for a brand to make.
Yeah, it is. But going back to the glass, I just the optical, and look, I haven't compared it. I don't know how much you've compared it, Seth or Ricci, the differences. And I'm not really interested in talking about the differences, but the Nikon glass is outstanding. And I can only go back to that first revelation when I first picked up the 50mm 1.8, stuck it on my Z7, and I just went, what is going on here? This is outstanding. And it was a whole different experience from F glass and whatever else. Like, it's optically outstanding.
I found the gearing.
I was just going to say that a lot of people, obviously, and I focus on this a lot. We talk about picture quality and we compare older lenses and newer lenses and so on. But there are also like the practical elements of being able to use a lens or do something with a lens that you couldn't do with the older version. So if we take a look at the 14-24, for instance, right? So f-mount 14 to 24 2.8. If you were a landscape photographer, if you wanted to use that with filters, it was quite a difficult task. You had to generally use 150 millimeter square filters if you were using drop-in filters, or you had to try and get some sort of contraption to attach to the front. And the Z-mount version just being a lot smaller means that if you are still wanting to use drop-in filters, or if you're wanting to use square filters, you now use a 100 millimeter set. They're much smaller, the holder's easier to use. Like practical improvements to a lens for things like landscape photography, architecture, whatever it is, are things that sometimes get overlooked compared to just outright picture quality, right? So realistically, because the Z-mount 14 to 24 2.8, when that was going to be announced, the only thing I wanted to know was whether or not I could use 100 millimeter filters on it. If I couldn't use 100 millimeter drop-in filters, I'm not talking about a screw-in filter here. If I couldn't use 100 millimeter filters on it, I would have continued to use the 14 to 30 f4 because I can use them on that lens. And that was all that mattered to me, because if I couldn't take 100 millimeter filters, I would have then had to have gone back to an SW150 set, and that's not something I wanted to do. So quality is always important, but there are also other things like the practical uses of a lens, especially for landscape and so on.
Yeah. And those sorts of things have been thought about, and that's complete. I mean, the 70 to 200, I think, is an absolutely outstanding lens. The VR is outstanding. Everything about it is just brilliant. It focuses super fast. I think that's obviously at the top of its class. So, sorry, my telephone's ringing. I mean, that's cool.
I'll say that if there was anything about the 24 to 120, which again is one of my go-to, like it says my camera more than anything. If there's one thing I wish this had, I wish they didn't take out the vibration reduction in it. I would have liked to have that extra stabilization, but gaining the lens function button was really nice to have. So I set that to kill my exposure simulation on the fly, so I can just keep checking myself while I'm working. Because when you guys work with strobe, it's a whole nother animal. You're thinking about light that doesn't exist and looking at light that doesn't exist. So it's kind of like you kind of need these two exposures in your head at the same time, and it's a lot for someone to juggle sometimes.
It's interesting you say the VR. I have found the stabilization of that lens with the bodies to be like, I didn't own the old one, but I've found it to be very good, very, very good. But you think it's different?
No, the other one, the old one, the stabilization was noticeable. Like I actually, in the 24 to 120, when the VR was clicked on, you definitely felt it.
Yeah.
With this lens, I have the stabilization in the body, but Nikon like puffed out the chest and was like, you can work with the optical and the in-body and make this super stabilization. I'm like, well, Ricci, I want that shit. Come on, man. Like,
I think the reasoning behind it is that a combined VR is less effective at 120 millimeters. So anything that's like 200 millimeters and beyond is pretty much where you get the most benefit. Obviously 105 macro is the exception, but because you're working with macro, the more stabilization you can get, the better. So that's my understanding of the reasoning behind it. And also because it makes the lens smaller and lighter and cheaper. So that's kind of what
that's the other thing. That lens is like $1,000, which is like, as horrible as it sounds, makes it sound, but that's like cheap for glass. That's $1,000 for a lens that performs like this. And the original 24 to 120, I shot 5 magazine covers with that lens, and people tell me every day it's a kit lens, and I'm like, okay, like they're great lenses. I mean, it's crazy. Actually, this was shot with it. What am I talking about?
It's optically a very, very good lens. Oh wow, good one.
That was shot with the 24 to 120. So, it did something.
Well, I mean, that just continues to prove the point. At the end of the day, we're all talking about these 1% differences, and it's irrelevant if you capture the shot, right? And so many of the shots that are captured in the world, probably 99% of them, don't require those 1% differences to capture them.
And I find it really interesting that, well, it's kind of to be expected because it happens in every scenario, but I feel like people have like a taste or a flavor of different lenses. So like a couple of years ago, everyone was obviously going mental for things like ultra sharp, incredibly detailed lenses, very clinical lenses. Now I'm starting to see more and more people who want characterful lenses that aren't as sharp. They have a lot more character in them. And we're kind of meeting in the middle where we get this mixture of some lenses have flare, some lenses aren't quite as sharp, some lenses are incredibly sharp and incredibly detailed. And we're just getting more choice than ever. And I feel like sometimes people want a sharp lens, sometimes you want a soft lens, sometimes you want some character. It's just, you just need to choose which lens is right for what you want, right?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
That's when you go on eBay and look for all the widows that are selling their jerk husband who died on their lens. And then you adapt it because it's a manual focus anyway. And it gives you all this weird, flary, soap bubbly looking stuff. And she's like, he never took pictures with it anyway. And you go, awesome, it's mine now. And, you know.
Well, I was going to say there's some great third-party lenses that fit that category where, you know, maybe they're not optically perfection, but they give you some really interesting outcomes and you can just play. And yeah, the Z mount, of course, as we've talked about in the past, is one of the most adaptable, if not the most adaptable mount in existence. I've put on Mamiya RB67 lenses. You can put on old Canon. You can put on Sony E-mount. I mean, it's crazy what you can put onto that. And I think what would have it been? Probably 2011, someone at Nikon was sitting there going, let's make it the shortest mount we can make it. And so then we can adapt everything. And this will be one of the killer features. And I reckon everyone went, yes, let's do that. It's such a good idea.
I did just see, I saw a great comment about how many great images have been made with an 18-55 that have never been shared online and never posted online. There's a photographer friend that I know who has some incredible pictures of jaguars in the rainforest shot on a 18-55. And like, they're amazing pictures. So it doesn't matter if you, as long as you're happy with the quality of the lens that you're getting, you know, that's all that matters.
I'm interested to see here that you go, Seth, you go.
I mean, what happened is people self-published, right? And what ended up happening was, hey, who's getting the most likes and who's getting more? Oh, the people that do this stupid stuff with bokeh balls behind them and shallow depth of fields and stuff. And people started gravitating to want that look. And everybody started getting this cookie cutter feel. And then we started getting presets. So not only did we get the cookie cutter feel, but with the cookie cutter grading. And then it just kept on turning into this and this and this. And people started looking for, well, what would differentiate me? I know, I'll slap a prism in front of my lens. I know, I'll throw a mirror underneath my lens. And after a while, it was just little trick after little trick. But in the end, the most impactful images are the ones that shoot content that people connect with and that tell a story that the viewer gets to be part of, you know. And if you don't realize that, if people see your images and go, wow, those look really noisy, you shot a boring image. It's not about the camera. The shot was boring. Okay. So I think people don't realize in the end, it's about the image and people connecting with it, not what did the lens do? How did this perform? Blah, 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 blah. And we lose that because all we care about is shoot out the Alpha 1 versus the Z9, you know, hit like. It's like, okay, can we go back to shooting? Can we do that?
I have been selling photography at retail, standing there selling stuff to people for 30 years. I don't think I've ever been asked what camera. And I have sold thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures. I started at markets. So I was literally standing there, 200 sales on a day. And no one said, oh, what camera are you using? Is that a Canon or whatever, you know? So totally. And we know that. Photographers know that. You submit your work. They don't ask you what your camera is, do they? It's
you know what's crazy?
Is the shot any good? Yes, we love your work. Thanks. Come back. You know, they just care about the final product.
You know, I don't know how it is with you guys, but in America with the trade shows, when they have the competitions, we've been so far removed from the shot that there's now a category called unedited or like just the raw file, just to show what you actually shot. Like, isn't that insane that that's how far it's gotten? That's almost like a competition when we were kids giving the negative. Like, what are you kidding me? Like, that's how far removed we've gone from having actual images. It's nuts. And I shoot right out of camera. And most people that are watching this that know me have seen my shoots live. You see it get shot in front of your face. And that's the shot that goes on Instagram. Same thing with the Adorama videos. What you see me shoot, I don't edit anything.
Yeah. Oh, well, and again, that's what I've found, and I can't speak for other systems, but you see in my videos, I have to do minimal editing. Once you get your exposure right and your frame right, why do you have to go and edit after the fact? I mean, are we photographers or are we computer scientists? I thought we were photographers. And so the first and most important job is to go out and get the shot, right? That's the first most important part. Good stuff.
I think in the end, it's like, yeah, we have more tools, but that doesn't mean that listen, you can have your style and you can edit your stuff to death. You can make people's skin look like plastic. Women apparently have no pores or blood vessels anymore. People's eyes have illumination somehow now. Yeah. That's how we've evolved as people. Listen, if that's your style, enjoy it, but don't jump in my DMs and ask me why no one's following your page after a while. Listen, you build the audience to the work you create. If there isn't an audience, I hope you like that work yourself.
Well, we have to please ourselves first. Otherwise, you won't have the passion to keep going. I mean,
that's like one of the biggest things, right? So obviously I teach thousands of people photography every year. And everybody is always like, oh, but like, no one likes my pictures, or they always try and think about what they can do to have people like their work. And it's like, do you like your pictures? Like, if you like your pictures, I literally couldn't care less what anybody else thinks. And like, I get if you're entering competitions and there's judging panels, all that type of stuff, right? But fundamentally, especially if you're a beginner, just take pictures of what you enjoy shooting and the rest will follow. Yeah. Because you get better through your enjoyment rather than forcing yourself to do something that you don't want to do. I could never shoot weddings. I would literally hate it. And I just don't want to deal with that. So I don't shoot weddings. I could, but I don't want to. So it's like, I speak to so many people who force themselves to go and shoot weddings, but you kind of ruin the enjoyment of photography, right? I would much prefer to go and sit in a hide for 8 hours and shoot birds or bears or whatever it is. So just do what you like. And it's amazing how many people don't. You have to tell them. You have to tell them to go and shoot what they want to shoot first. And then everything that you learn will become natural because you're enjoying it. That's the enjoyment that makes you a better photographer.
Yeah, but we were raised different, man. Look, we assisted people. We were taught we learned on film, right? All of us, we learned on film, I'm guessing, right? Yeah. So it's a different animal. And I think people don't realize that a lot of people are developing their tact, taste, and style from what's happening here. They're not even holding prints anymore. They're not even looking at tonality. They're not really they're just trying to get it up and out fast and get a reaction to it. And if you don't get a reaction to it, there's no serotonin, right? So it's kind of like, I feel like do what you want, but you're going to find out it takes a long time to develop not just your style, but a tact level and a taste level and something that people want to be a part of, not just something that like, how'd you do that? Oh, I bought this preset for half off from a YouTube channel. Get out of here.
And by the way, I just wanted to mention that I have a half off all my preset packs right now. Please click in the link below. No, I haven't done that. I'm lying.
But he does have calendars. Packs. He has calendars.
Oh yeah.
He has calendars.
But wait, real photography. There it is. Look at that. 12 of them. All good. Thanks for reminding me, Seth. That's good. We should mention it a few more times. No. God, you've got to go out there and do what you love. Like, there is no way to get your own original voice, and there's no way. How long have we all been in the photography industry? Me, it's 32 years. Seth, how long have you been doing
it? Getting paid or shooting? Shooting.
At least every week.
About 23 years. I got published the first time. Yeah, it's been about 23 years for me since I've been published. So yeah, I went pro very young, and I almost left high school to start this career. So yeah.
Yep. Richie?
I'm about 15, 16 years.
So we all know that it takes a long time to find your style. It takes a long time to find your groove and your place. And it's critical that you photograph and you're doing what you love, because there are so many highs and lows in this business. And it's just so hard to turn it into a job, right? And, at the end of the day, I know we're here to talk about gear, but at the end of the day, photography is about the passion, and it's about the love, and it's about the stories you want to share. And whether it's celebration of an event, whether it's wildlife, and whether it's cityscapes, portraiture, whatever we all want to do, and we've probably all done a bit of everything, to be honest. You've got to love it. You've got to love it, and you've got to love that more than you love the gear. To be completely honest with you, because I can tell you, I actually spend more time shooting than I do looking or worrying about gear. As much as that might not seem possible, it is.
Listen, talking gear is like super fun. I love it all the time, and it's cool hearing people's different perspectives. But what you have to realize, and what I say every time I'm on a stage, is stop buying hype and invest in yourself. Because no matter how much money you spend on this, it's the same hands. So what difference if this hand pushes this button or something on $100 that I push a button? It doesn't make a difference. The specs aren't going to save your life. If you don't tell the camera what you're trying to do with a clear vision, you don't end up with anything to share with anyone else. You guys have to understand that. And if you don't, take a step back and look at what you're doing. All right.
Yeah, because our industry is about communicating. I think we'd all say that what we have in common is we love to share stories, whether it's the story of nature, the story of people, the story of time and place. We're actually all storytellers. I think we're all shy, but we're all storytellers, and you're not shy, Seth?
Fuck that.
Come on. I reckon you're an introverted extrovert, surely. Introverted
I don't care about anything. I don't care about anything. Actually, Ricci has heard me yell at crowds before. So.
It's scary.
All right. So Seth, anyway, whether we're shy or not, it's completely irrelevant. We all love to share our stories, and that's what's super exciting. I reckon as we head towards the 2-hour mark, I think we're going to call last drinks. It's been amazing, gentlemen. We'll hang around here for another couple more minutes. If anyone's,
I did just see somebody said that I want to shoot 8K video on a Z9 whilst riding on a new one-wheel GT. I know someone who's done. So yeah, you wouldn't be the first person to do that, unfortunately. But I know someone from the video crew that I know in the UK who's done that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there any behind the scenes?
Great. Yeah, I actually do have some behind the scenes stuff. I've got 120 frames per second shots of someone coming towards me on a one wheel. All of them are like in focus. So I've just not had time to actually process them. So shot at 120 frames per second, someone coming towards me on a one wheel at about, I think it was like 10, 12 mile an hour. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, I've had some.
How fast?
I think it was about 10, 12 mile an hour.
Wow. That's awesome.
Might be 9, 10, I don't know.
One wheels are crazy. Was that a loaner from Nikon?
No.
Oh, they did it with their own.
No. One of the guys that I know has his own, and he's had it for quite a while. But yeah, they're great. They're great for video because if you just want to basically do like a pan shot or follow a car, for example, you're on a one wheel rather than trying to run follow it or using another car. So that's what they use it for.
Yeah,
when do we get to see this?
Yeah, this sounds good.
When do we get to see this, Ricci?
Well, I'm going to have to find them now that I've mentioned to everybody publicly.
But you don't have to do it right now, mate. You don't have to do it right now. You can throw it on your Instagram or whatever you want to do.
I will find them. I will
make a video about it. Any more questions?
You hear that? You have to follow all of our Instagrams to see this stuff. You see that?
Yeah, all of us.
Look, I just want to say, I feel super fortunate for where we are technologically with the gear that's in our hands, what we can do. We are talking across the world right now. I'm talking to the UK. I'm talking to Australia from a noisy apartment in Brooklyn. Okay. This is bananas. So if you guys don't understand how lucky we are, all of you that are in this chat complaining about anything, I ordered it a month ago. Yeah. Well, it's amazing it's even here at all. Are you kidding me? So everybody needs to at least feel appreciative of where we are in this world right now. With what you can do in the palm of your hand has been just nuts. So
yeah, Well,
Yeah.
I just watched the Netflix film Don't Look Up, and I really enjoyed it. And well, I don't want to ruin the film for those who haven't watched it, but they're making the same point, Seth, that well, we have it all, don't we? We have it all, and there's really genuinely nothing that any of us should be complaining about, and we really do have it all. And I am a bit of a greenie, and I would say, we've got to make sure that we continue to look after the world around us and people around us. And of course, it is the season to be merry and to remember the good things. We're going into a new year. Let's all hope that next 2022 gives us a little bit more freedom to travel the world again. I would love to come to the Northern Hemisphere and actually have a steak or a beer or something with you guys. And but yeah, let's just all look after each other and remember we do. We really have it all. And we are so spoiled. We're so spoiled. We're so spoiled.
Yeah, it's true. And I want to thank all you guys in the chat. I mean, some of you stuck with us for 2 hours now, which is nuts.
Yes.
We'll do this again, I'm sure. We'll have to, maybe after the firmware update. How about that? The big firmware update, Richie.
It might be 6 months. I don't know if I can wait that long. Anyway, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm sure.
No,
there'll
it'll be
something
faster.
we can talk about, even if it's just like about photography and stuff, right? It doesn't always have to be about gear like we've talked about.
Exactly. So. Oops, I've gone out of my square. There we go. All right, everybody. Well, Jesus, I think we have we hit the 2 hour mark? I've lost it. I can't find the thing. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Richie, thank you for being awake at 2 a.m. You are a bloody legend. And it's just so great to have you both here. Happy New Year. I hope 2022 is amazing for both of you. And let's talk soon. Thank you to everybody out there. I really appreciate the audience. I really appreciate all your thoughts, all your love, all your care. Gents, sayonara.
Thanks so much.
And we should